Literacy and Numeracy Secretariat's January special feature webcast entitled Making Sense of Reading Instruction Grades 4 to 6. Research indicates that reading proficiency impacts on all aspects of learning during a student's school life and beyond. This webcast will feature 4 internationally recognized experts in the field of literacy instruction and local leaders in education from across Ontario as they highlight what makes sense in reading instruction grades 4 to 6.
This webcast concerns reading instruction in the junior years. As educators, we need to build a rich literacy environment in our classrooms for all of our students so that they can continue to develop as strong, competent readers in all areas of the curriculum and in their lives outside of school. We need to connect their lives in school to their lives in their home communities, where reading can be seen as a necessary and valued process in every aspect of their world. Some educators have called the junior division the quantity years, where students read every book in a series, pore over graphic novels, collect all the sports cards, spend hours working on projects, and use every free moment on the computer. We want to build on all of these reading events, of the interconnections between technology and print, and engage our students actively in all aspects of meaning making with the texts of their lives. We can help them apply strategies for making deeper and stronger meanings with everything we read, so they come to understand different perspectives, other ways of being in the world. We can help them to talk in groups, become involved in deep conversations, where empathetic and critical responses are authentic outcomes of the literacy events we structure. And as we respect their reading interests, we can also offer them options they would not meet without us, enriching their lives with all types of wonderful resources and helping them move towards the goal of becoming literate citizens.
Junior learners are curious, active, and social by nature. They need opportunities to talk and interact with their peers and engage in exploratory learning. By structuring the learning environment to complement these characteristics, teachers can model, guide, and support students as they strive to become independent learners and thinkers. Classrooms where space is provided for movement, drama, role play, and activities that students work together on in pairs, small groups, and in large group settings honor these unique characteristics. By providing differentiated instruction involving a variety of different teaching strategies, texts, text forms, student groupings, and learning activities, the teacher is able to maximize the learning for all students. Creating a positive classroom environment sets the stage for effective literacy instruction. A classroom culture that is welcoming, engaging, and risk-free supports students as they work towards becoming a community of learners. In order to develop this culture, it is important to establish consistent routines and classroom norms or agreements that are universally understood by all students. Students respect the fact that their voices are being heard as you engage them in this process. As you view this section of the webcast, you will see how Devika, a grade 4 teacher, and Paul, a grade 6 teacher, establish agreements in the respective classrooms and chart these for students to refer to throughout the year.
In setting the routines of the classroom, I really wanted to come together as a group, discover and create these classroom agreements. I didn't want to be the teacher where, okay, here are the 10 agreements, 10 routines of the classroom, 10 rules of the classroom. I wanted the kids to be engaged in it and be part of it as well. And so together as a group, we brainstorm what are some agreements we think we should be following in our classroom when we're inside.
I usually start with what I call my class motto or my purpose statement. And that's basically, it's all over the room, you'll see it. Our class is a safe place to learn, make mistakes, have fun, and build relationships. We talk about what it means in regards to having a safe environment. It's not a perfect environment, but it's safe where everybody can feel comfortable to be themselves, to express, but the whole part is to make mistakes too, because they know that if they make mistakes, they're not going to be ridiculed, they're not going to be, thrown out the window or failed, but that's part of learning in grade 6. So, somebody remind me, when someone's speaking, how do we show them we're listening? Marina?
You look at them and you don't talk.
Okay, why?
Because you would interrupt them.
All right. And how do our bodies show that we're listening? How do our bodies? Nicholas?
We face them.
We face them. All right. And is there anything else that we missed? Anything else? Mitchell?
You should usually make visual eye contact with the person who's speaking.
Okay, show them that you're listening. You know, the whole idea is to know and be known by everybody, and that just creates a little bit of intimacy, but it also creates accountability for one another, for each other, and that's important too.
Okay, you should be stopping, putting the markers down, the pencils down, looking, and listening. I'm looking for faces. Okay, it is getting a little noisy because I realize that you guys are writing and you want to talk about it, but there's a time for that. I'm meeting with KJ for a conference, so I need to be able to hear KJ. And he's sitting right beside me and I can't hear him. So lower the volume a little and focus on your writing. One of the ways that I get my students' attention is by using a rain stick, and I used the rain stick from the very first day of school to set the tone that this is what we're going to use when I need to get their attention. And so they were taught explicitly, when they hear the rain stick, this is what I expect from them, what it sounds like and what it looks like.
Okay, thank you for stopping and listening. I know that you're working well, but we've run out of time. What I need, please, is for everybody to head to their desks. Also, one of the things we want to do is establish classroom guidelines, classroom routines, so that the students get a sense of what are some of the things they can do, should be doing. Somebody tell me, if you finish 2 language cards, what else could you or should you be working on? Jan?
Journal.
Journal. When are journals due, Jan?
Monday.
Monday, okay. So make sure your journals are complete. If you finish it early, put it in the red bin.
In the beginning of setting the routines, we all started by reading together. And so we really talked about if everyone is reading, then they need their time to think and read. And then once our routine was set, I slowly introduced another task, such as writing the letters to me. So they all knew that they were writing letters to me each week. So once they got comfortable with that, I introduced another layer to it, which was the conferences. So when I was meeting with a student, they knew that they could either be reading independently, or they could be writing the letters, or they could be choosing new books for the week. So when I say write your letter, or choose your books, or reading, they all knew exactly what to do.
My guided reading or my guided writing groups are very much based on the students' needs. In this case, I've got a group that needs to be challenged in regards to their comprehension and their reading skills. So this would be some students that need to be pushed a little bit. So I picked a novel that will force them to use vocabulary they don't often use, to look at a time period that they don't often think about, and it's going to challenge them in regards to their thinking skills, as well as their conversation skills and their comprehension skills. So we've been looking at some of the roles in a literature circle, and in the next term we'll get a chance to put you into literature circle groups, but which ones have we done so far? Yes?
Passage picker.
Right. What was that? And?
Oh, connector.
And?
Illustrator.
All right, and so yesterday I gave you the what? The questionnaire, okay? What kind of questions were they? Maddie?
The questions were so that we could understand more about the chapter, I think.
Okay, so they weren't yes or no questions, they were fat questions as opposed to just one-word answer questions. Okay, so who's got a good question that's going to challenge us to think, and then we'll get some opinions. Okay, Michael.
What do you think would happen to the Abbey if the prior died?
We're up. Remember, no hands, please.
I think they would be pretty happy because they always call him the sour pickle.
After reading time, students usually get together with a partner, or we get together as a group to share. And the reason being that I want them to articulate what strategies they're using, because I constantly remind them that reading is all about thinking. And when we're thinking, we need to share with others what we're thinking. Can you share with us what strategy you used, Angel?
I read it over and over again until I got it correct.
So was this a word you didn't know what it meant, or you didn't know how to pronounce it?
I don't know how to pronounce it.
And so you reread it?
Yeah, I reread it. I broke down the word into pieces, and then after I read each broken down word and put it back together, and I got the word.
So you use chunks to figure out how to pronounce the word?
Yes.
Okay, great. Putting together the writing program, I really wanted to set a purpose for writing and using real examples of real authors, real writers, and myself as a writer. And so giving students the idea that when they're writing, there really needs to be a purpose. And once they've decided their purpose, then they can make other decisions. So getting them to understand that as writers, they're decision makers as well.
We did personal posters, and that's one of the things I like to do at the beginning of the year, where we look at a whole bunch of topics that they could write about themselves, for instance, their family background, their hopes and dreams, all sorts of things like that, and they create their personal posters, and you'll see them around the room. We put their picture right in the middle, they write about themselves and add some artwork, and these stay up all year long.
I chose to do the autobiography project because I wanted an authentic way to assess my students' writing skills. And I wanted to teach the writing process as well. And I wanted to give them a way to present themselves to each other and myself. And so the end product was a piece where I can look at and see what their needs were to build my instruction on, and as well build that community of learners by getting them to present themselves and realizing that they're different yet very similar as well.
Structuring the day to provide large blocks of time for students to engage in purposeful and authentic reading and writing activities is essential for effective literacy instruction to occur. By structuring, introducing, modeling, and guiding students through tasks such as choosing appropriate and engaging books to read during independent reading time and then recording responses in a reading journal, teachers begin to prepare students to be able to do these tasks on their own. Students understand the process, know the teacher's expectations, and have all available resources organized and readily available. This gradual release of responsibility allows teachers time to work with individuals or small groups of students for specific, focused teaching time based on students' learning needs.
I am holding a party. And it's a party not for grade 6, but it's a party for JKs and SKs. And it's a winter party right before Christmas break. And I need some companies to propose an activity or a game for that party. So your job will be to form a little company and come up with a game or an activity that you think JKs or SKs would want to play or be involved in during that party. It could be anything from having to do with art or to playing. It might involve something that you eat. It might involve an activity, but you only get to come up with one proposal. So in your group, there's going to be more than one person. What do you see as a potential problem when you've got more than one person and a whole bunch of ideas? What might be a problem? Emily?
A lot of people will be shouting out their ideas and not listening to each other.
Okay, so how can we solve that problem? Stephanie, what do you think?
We have take turns just talking and sharing your ideas, just go around in a circle.
You think that's going to be easy?
No.
All right, how many people find it easy to wait to listen to somebody else when you've got something you want to say? None of you better put your hands up because you don't get your hand up. Okay, because often when you're out, when I see you in groups, everybody wants to talk at the same time. Is that going to accomplish anything? Not much, right? So what you're going to do is you're going to have to find a way to make sure everybody in your company gets listened to, because you can only propose one idea to me. And now what you're going to do is you're going to have to write it down and present your idea to me, a panel of judges of one, and then I will see whether or not I employ your company or not. Yes, ma'am.
You could all talk for a minute, and then...
At the same time?
No, one person could talk for a minute, and then it could go on to a different person, and they could talk for a minute.
Okay, so in other words, say, okay, everybody gets a chance to propose their idea, and then what do you do after that? 3 minutes or 4 minutes, though?
And then you decide which idea everyone thought they liked the best, or they could mix all of their ideas into one.
Okay, so yes, ma'am.
You could also write them down.
Okay.
You can remember all of them.
You can give it to whoever is hosting the whatever, and then they can read it and they can ask you a question.
And then you could all have a debate about which one would be the best and why.
Okay. Now, you got to watch out for your time because I'm only going to give you 20 minutes. What I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a square, and whatever color you get is the color you keep, and that's going to be the group that you're in. All right, so who's got blue? Look at each other, smile, hands down. Who's got yellow? Look at each other, smile, thank you. Who's got light green? Okay, please have one person in your group bring me the squares. Go. Okay, so your committees were working hard, but often when you have a committee, sometimes you have problems. Did anybody encounter any difficulties? Oh, wow, what a surprise. Okay, tell me one. Nick, one problem.
When we were doing ours, we decided on doing a movie, and we couldn't decide what kind of movie we were going to give to them.
Okay, so how did you solve your problem?
We just found, since it's going to be like Christmas time for the party, we're going to do like Elf because it's a kid movie and because it's at Christmas time. So I think we could do that for them.
All right, any other challenges, problems? Mitchell?
Well, we had a really hard time staying together. My group, they just wanted to go their own ways mostly, and it was really hard. And everyone didn't have the same idea, so it was really hard to put everything together.
Did you come up with a solution?
Yes.
Really? Good.
Well, we got everyone went their own ways, made something, and we came back and put it all together.
I wanted to meet with you because I've been reading your letters, and there's some very interesting things. So can you take out your reader's notebook? Great. So let's take a look at your reading list. Last time I met with you, your reading list wasn't complete. You only had adventure books, and there was a couple of books that you abandoned. So let's take a look. So can you tell me what you've read so far since we last met?
I finished this page and almost this page.
Okay.
And I abandoned this book.
Can you tell me why you abandoned this book, Viking Ships at Sunrise?
Because when I was reading the book, and I was keep on reading it, and then I found it that I didn't like it. It was kind of boring.
Why did you think it was boring?
Because it was all about like these two boy and girl are going to this adventure. They found a ship and they went there, and then it was boring.
And you didn't like that?
No.
Okay, can we go to our response letters section of your book? Okay. So, in our letters together, you writing me, I read your last one. You were telling me about the graphic novels, that you tried reading a graphic novel. Can you tell me why you didn't like it?
I didn't like it because I didn't like books that has bubbles and then writing inside of it, and then there's lots of pictures of it, and then I don't know where to start and where to end.
So have you found any other books that you like, that you enjoy reading?
Not yet, but I'm trying to read different books to see which one I like.
And that's what readers do. They read a lot of different books until they find the types or the genres that they like. So in my letter to you last time, that's what I wrote. It says to keep on reading different books, that the only way you'll discover what you like, and you have to choose different ones and try it. And that's the important thing, is that you're trying to find the ones that you like. Thanks for meeting with me. Last week we did Cassie. We did the assessment. It was a chance for me to get to know you as a reader. Can you tell me how you felt doing Cassie?
I kind of felt strange because I didn't know lot about fossils, because I only know that I thought fossils were only dinosaur imprints, but I really now learned that animals and plants are also imprints.
So you learned something by reading the article. But you chose the article. You were given 3 choices and you chose it. Why did you choose that specific article to read?
Because dinosaurs are my favorite animals, and I also like fossils when I read this book last year about fossils.
So it was something you were interested in and you thought you knew some things about it already. Okay, great. So I went through your Cassie and I marked it. and there were some questions that I had for you. Remember that I'm going to be looking at yours and everyone's in the class, and it's going to help me decide what I need to teach you, basically. And so I noticed from the first question that we need to talk about summaries. And so later on, when I'm teaching about summaries, you're going to be one of those students that I'll meet with. Okay? But today, what I wanted to talk to you about was question number 5. And it asked you about fossils big and small being a nonfiction article. Can you read to me what you wrote?
That it gives information of fossils that are big and small. Fossils are real. Also that in fossils there is an imprint of something or an insect dead inside.
Okay, do you think your answer answered the question?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's read the question. It says, list 3 characteristics that show that this is a non-fiction article. Did you answer that part?
No.
So can you tell me what are 3 characteristics of a non-fiction article?
One of the things that the person is telling a real thing about the Dominican Republic.
So non-fiction writing or reading are real. Okay, can you tell me another characteristic?
That in the fossil it can also be an animal that is dead, like a part of it, like a fly or an insect.
So the article is about real things, and it tells you facts or information. Okay, so that's the second characteristic. What's the third characteristic?
Well, maybe there is a real Dominican Republic. Right here it says that it is 1,280 kilometers southeast of Florida.
Okay.
So I think that might be...
So what this tells me, KJ, is that you do understand the characteristics of nonfiction articles. And so later on when I'm teaching, we don't need to talk about that. I don't need to meet with you about this, but I may meet with you with something else. Okay? Okay.
As I enter a classroom and look for certain indicators related to a really positive literacy environment would include, well, initially at a first glance, things like a print-rich environment and the setup of the classroom to allow for large group and small group learning opportunities. And moreover, then when we get into the actual delivery of the program, we're looking for a balanced literacy approach that's infused throughout the program. We're looking at viewing, reading, listening, writing, talking, opportunities for presentation. Guided reading, guided writing, shared, modeled, interactive, independent reading and writing throughout the curriculum. As a principal, I have a responsibility to provide leadership opportunities for teachers and to nurture those opportunities for teachers. And professional development is part of what we do. You need to build a collegial, collaborative environment in which people feel comfortable pursuing professional development. Nobody wants to go to a dentist who hasn't upgraded their skills in 30 years, and nobody wants to go to a teacher who hasn't stayed on top of current findings and current practices for the last 30 years. So that's what we try to do, is to create an environment where people feel comfortable. It's a risk-free environment where people are comfortable saying, I don't know how to do this, support me, help me in how to do this. And that's what we do. So part of nurturing leadership is ensuring that you have the confidence to give up control sometimes, to be in control but not to be controlling. And it's to allow people the opportunities to try different things. And in a unique educational environment as a leader, there are certain ways that we have to help people increase their morale and have job satisfaction. One of the ways to do that is to allow them opportunities to demonstrate leadership. Part of it too is succession planning. It's a very mobile profession and people leave from one school to the other. And if a leader leaves and all the positive initiatives that have taken place leave with them, you haven't done your job. So you need to ensure that they stay. And by developing leadership within the staff and on staff, that tends to help ensure that stays in place. The reality of our situation in education right now is that 2 of the major constraints are time and finances. And so 2 of the ways in which we deal with that in terms of professional development is to be creative with our timetable, to provide teachers the opportunity to meet with each other and talk to each other, because that's where the most valuable learning takes place. And also to ensure that when teachers do go out to workshops, the cost being supply teachers and possibly the cost of the workshop, that opportunities are provided for them when they come back to meet with other staff members and to share the learning that they've gone through.
I really think classrooms need to be exciting places, I really think they need to be places of huge possibility. And I'm a great believer, as Bell Hooks is, that classroom excitement is generated through collective effort. So that kids, we need to see kids working together, up on their feet, doing all sorts of different kinds of activities in and through the arts that engage them, make them think, make them feel, make them change their minds about the way in which the world works. And I have worked for a number of years, both at the Faculty of Education and in my work in the Toronto District School Board, around teaching that sort of is situated around what I call the 6 E's of effective teaching, which are first and foremost having high expectations. Secondly, establishing a respectful, inclusive environment in which all kids feel that they belong. Thirdly, that one gives students opportunities to engage in activities that are meaningful, interesting, and intriguing. So as teachers, we need to really think about how we're going to begin our lessons. How are we going to make kids want to be there and want to learn? Fourthly, how does one set up situations in classrooms where kids explore the material, not only intellectually, but also through their bodies and through their minds and through their spirits. Fifth, how do you set up classrooms where the learning is extended into deeper realms so that one goes beyond a superficial understanding of text or story, and one really spends time with children looking at difficult knowledge and looking at ways in which the world works that we need language to use in order to understand it. And finally, evaluation. Our classrooms in Ontario are really varied, and we have kids from all over the world, and some of them, we certainly have students with different kinds of learning styles. We have students who come from different kinds of backgrounds and have different needs. So how do you, as teacher, teach fairly and assess and evaluate fairly in an unfair world? I did a workshop for teacher candidates from York University, and I wanted them to think about teaching and learning in kind of broad strokes. And I introduced them to what I call my 6 E's of effective teaching. And the first E that I talk about and care a lot about is thinking about withholding judgment of kids until one has an idea of who they really are. Always having high expectations for students. Raising the bar so that actually kids want to meet them and can meet them. Not mean expectations, but expectations where you say to students as a group, as junior students in the classroom, you say, you're not going to say, I demand this of you. You're going to say, the work that we're going to do in classrooms, the kind of tasks that we're going to work together on, demands this of us. I spent a lot of time working on the second E, which is about establishing a respectful, inclusive classroom for all students. And why I think this is important in the literacy classroom is simply this. We know that it's important for kids to have an empathetic teacher in order for them to feel comfortable to speak out loud and to write and to read. But equally important is having the classroom participants, the students themselves, support all learners in the classroom, support those that are tentative, support those that are ELL, support those who are shy and are just beginning to sort of come out of their shell. So I spent a lot of time establishing through game, through exercises, through discussion, activities that promote respectful understandings of who we are. The next E after that then is, how do you engage students? This is what this is all about, this webcast, but how do you suck them in? How do you have kids come in and say, are we going to do that thing we did yesterday? You know that thing we did, are we going to continue? You want that. We have to think of ways of arresting their attention. So, it's wonderful when you know that you've started your lesson and you started in kind of a mysterious way, and like, what's she doing up there? One of the things that I think is important, and I say this to my teacher candidates, is how do you begin your lesson? Do you begin it with a series of questions that everybody knows the answer to? No. You begin with something that is intriguing. One of the activities that I use as an engaging activity with students is simply this one. And I call it I see, I remember, I imagine. So who wants to just begin by saying what they saw in the picture?
I see abandonment. Even the stuffed animal has space between her and looking the other way.
All right, abandonment. So this man is able to see symbolism. What did it remind you of? Anybody? Yes.
I think it reminds me of, it's a personal thing, when I was 4 years old and I was sitting on the basement steps rocking, saying, I want to go to school like my three sisters.
All right, so it brings back a personal memory. And then lastly, what do you imagine is happening or has happened? Yes.
My imagining was how she got there, that possibly her mom had just had a baby.
All right, so you've created a whole narrative. This is about a child whose mother has just had a baby. She doesn't think she'll be loved anymore, etc. The next D is the exploration E. How do you get kids up on their feet, interested in what they're doing, using language for real purposes? So one of the strategies I use is called roll on the wall. Now, how I did it in the workshop with teacher candidates, I asked students to come up and write in the figure characteristics or attributes or adjectives that describe that character. So how would this look like in a classroom, a grade 4 classroom? I had an opportunity to work with Nadine in her grade 4 classroom. And Nadine had some really good ideas about how she could adapt this technique to meet the needs of her particular students. So we drew a large figure of Luba and we put it on 4 different poster paper on the floor of the classroom. And we had the students sit in a circle. And then we asked them to come up and write words that described Luba. When I do this exercise, I like to use music. I think music adds a theatricality to the exercise. It calms everybody down. It gives some sort of special quality to the classroom. The really important part of this exercise is asking students to defend their choice of the word that they used. And this, for me, is always fascinating because students really begin to shape at the point their understanding at the point of their utterances of those words. They begin to talk themselves into understanding. So they've chosen the word, they've written it down themselves, they've owned that word, and then they are able to defend their choice.
Why did you choose generous?
I chose generous because she went out and got all the children a lot of food for them.
And then we asked them to think about, what did this hero, Luba, face? What were some of the things that she faced as a woman in a concentration camp? And the teacher elicited answers from the students and wrote those words around the figure of Luba. After the reading of the story, the students were asked to think about whether those words that they had created when we stopped the story in the middle still resonated for them. So they were asked to confirm their understandings of the vocabulary that they had used in the figure by checking off the words that actually made real sense to them. It's actually a great assessment task to do with students because one is able to see how much students know about the story, number one, how much they relate to the character, number two, and how much language they have to describe what it is that they're learning. With both the Lucia picture book that I used with the teacher candidates and the Luba picture book that we used with the students in the grade 4 classroom, there was an assessment piece that we thought was important in both ways. With the Lucia, we used an affidavit. It's called Affidavit of Humanity and respect. We, the undersigned elders of Lucia's home, request that the following 4 conditions of human decency and respect be met by your village. And with the children in the grade 4 classroom, we asked them to write a letter to Luba to tell her what we thought of her. And the letters used, of course, some of the vocabulary that had been generated in the Roll on the Wall activity. So how do you go from exploration activities into extension activities, where you go beyond the tinny, the superficial, into really a deep understanding of characters, their situations, the text itself? Well, when I worked with the teacher candidates, we looked at the situation that Lucia was in when she was forced from the village by prejudiced elders and community. And we looked at that through drama and dance, visual arts and music, and that became a whole workshop, and it's kind of a presentational kind of sharing. She breathed life, a different kind of life, into the village. Artists of the community, where do these beautiful hangings, where are they now in the village?
They're in the Hall of Regret.
The Hall of Regret. What do we do with the Lucia? We listen as she says her final words. I am a powerful woman, and I will not be judged by the ignorant. Another extending activity is readers' theater, which is kind of a sophisticated form of choral reading, where students actually take the text that is offered to them and bring it alive, not through their bodies, but through their voices only.
On the tree.
You have to help students understand readers' theater. You have to teach them all sorts of different kinds of techniques, because the last thing you want to happen in your classroom is students to get a text, be assigned a text, and for them to read it and set it too soon. So what I do is I spend time dividing the class into 2. And we work on various different kinds of techniques.
Yes, what do we play with?
We try and make it sound real.
All right. We make sure that the voices are authentic or real. Excellent. So we really believe these voices. What else?
Make it sound dramatic.
We make it sound dramatic. And how do we do that? How do we make the voices sound dramatic?
By adding expression.
Right. We use expression. You can chant it by using solo voices, duo voices, and in groups of 3. And you can play around with all sorts of different ways of creating meaning with this text.
Now I put them into groups with a text that somehow connects together. But the important thing for me now as teacher is to watch these students working with all the different techniques that I've taught them with the text. There's nothing more exciting than watching kids work in readers' theater in the process of putting it together, because as you watch them work, you begin to see that they're changing their perceptions and understanding of the text as they try it out in different ways. And in fact, they are bringing all their different ideas to the text so that it becomes a collective understanding. So what happens in this experience is that kids have to negotiate for meaning. They have to say, well, that isn't how I saw it. Oh, you saw it that way. Well, why don't we try it this way? Oh, now I see it differently. When students create readers' theater, they're creating art. And because they have been involved in the genesis of this, when they themselves become an audience, they see the techniques reverberated back to them. So when they go to theater, or when they see a performance, or when they watch a music video, they begin to see the art form of those things reflected back to them, and they can link that to their classroom experience of readers' theater. Reading alone is difficult for any of us. But reading collectively can be lots of fun for kids, especially if they've been given lots of opportunities to learn how to do it and to rehearse well together. It's really an interesting sharing of reading in a classroom that allows all kids to have an opportunity to use their projected voices in a way that makes them shine. Evaluation. how do you assess and evaluate an activity such as this? Well, I make sure, as I always do, that students have lots of time to do these kinds of activities. And I make sure, just as I said at the beginning, that I withhold judgment about these kids. So I'm fascinated when I see ELL kids take risks that they would never take in a conventional kind of classroom activity. I mean, one can, of course, make this into an evaluation performance task where one looks at and makes a rubric for this kind of activity. But really what I'm interested in is setting up classrooms where kids are engaged in activities that interest them, excite them, and move them to a new understanding of who they are and what language can be and do for them.
Elder Grove School is a large school that's situated in the southern part of Markham, which is in Ontario. We have 670 children attending the school here. It's a highly multicultural school. The children come from a variety of social, economic, and language backgrounds, which is quite unique. The arts are important literacy learning because, and particularly in this school, because our students come, as I said, with a variety of languages. And their key goal here is to acquire the English language and use it within their studies of curriculum. The arts allow the students an opportunity in a variety of ways to demonstrate their understanding, to comprehend what they're reading or what they're experiencing through the arts, and to use it in various studies that they have. We do have a drama teacher that works in our school, and she works with a variety of our classes in primary, junior, and intermediate.
I truly believe that through the arts, students are able to synthesize information, to actually understand what they're reading, what they are writing, and making sense and making connections as well. So some of the things that I do, visualizing to learn, one of the exercises are just behind me here. Sometimes it's difficult for students to find something to write about. So by using your imagination and then looking inside yourself and through the arts, drawing about what you saw in your imagination, in your head, you're able to use that as a source and a resource to write about what you see. So the idea of visualizing and creating pictures, it's almost like having a vocabulary as well. So not just letters, creating words and then sentence, but also pictures, images, lines, colors, then put together, creating a vocabulary that allows them to develop critical thinking and to express themselves. One of the things that I do as a teacher is to take into account where my students are coming from when they bring it to the table. So the idea of having the groupings include mixed abilities. Some of my students are gifted, some of them have learning disabilities, some are learning English for the first time, some have been here for a long time. So the idea is to pair them with mixed ability groups. I believe in the Howard Gardner's theory of multiple intelligence and the idea that we are all capable to understand and to make connections. So by using the arts, you're able to reach your full potential. So through readers' theater and other types of techniques that bring text alive, you help the students to connect with the text and with the author, and they're able to understand author's voice, not just reading words and repeating sounds, but actually making sense of what was written.
We brainstormed the definition, and these are all the things we talked about and the ideas you shared yesterday.
When I walked into the classroom and saw the charts on display, I knew that talk had happened in this program because the kids had done some webbing and some brainstorming. They got to work together, and I knew the teacher led them through this activity. She was demonstrating brainstorming and demonstrating talk.
Hands, please. Patrick.
Question that has clues.
Inference. Very good, Patrick. Delaney.
Decisions.
You make decision. Very good. And what else? As an educator, talk is already a gift. It's a given. It's there. They have it. And as a teacher, I use that to develop your learning skills. So talk is such an important component. Very good. And Cassandra?
It kind of mixes your own life with...
The second component of that was a graphic organizer that had them look at different kinds of questions.
The graphic organizer also serves those who are visual, and it organizes most of the ideas in a more logical way. We did brainstorming with regards to the 3 types of questions: the on-the-line question, between the lines question, and beyond the line questions. And then I moved them to the next step, wherein I showed them the real definition and the real description of each type of question. What I did next is read to them a short story. California is more than twice as high. Mount McKinley in Alaska is more than 3 times as high. And Mount Everest on the continent of Asia is nearly 5 times as high. And then I pose different questions. What type of question is that? Patrick, what do you think?
I think that's on the line because it can be directly found in the text.
Very good. It's a fact. It's right there. Excellent.
I think when we look at questioning, we look at 2 different frameworks. We look at the questions that the teachers ask to inspire inquiry, inspire thought, inspire deeper thinking. But also, we have to have kids ask questions, and the questions that kids ask that let them wonder are really those exciting questions that lead to discussion and lead to sharing and lead to building connections.
The Man and the Snake. This is the title of the story. What do you think?
I caught a snake once.
Yes, what kind of snake, Jalen?
A garter snake.
A garter snake. Are they poisonous?
No.
No. And what did you do with it?
I kept it in this little box for a while.
How long was the snake?
It was about as long as from one part of the desk to the other part of the desk.
That's very good. How did you catch it?
Actually, my dad just found it in the garbage can one morning and kept it for me to see.
Do you know like what it eats or anything like that? No.
Well, I do know that it eats the mice and frogs around my house.
So with the talk activity, I'm able also to assess how much they have learned. And what are the ways I do this? I have my checklist, and at the end of the activity, usually I do anecdotal entries, and also I observe them. I can see how excited they are and listening to what they're talking about.
What can you conclude from the selection? So you can use stuff from the text and put in your answer. And it says from the selection, so it's not your, like, I don't think it's your opinion. I think it's what you heard. It's like facts from the selection.
When we came in from recess, I saw that the kids had the novels and reading material on their desks. So I asked them to show me what they were reading these days, and I built that into a transition into talking about novels. I introduced a novel, and it was Avi's book, The Book Without Words. The Book Without Words. It's by Avi, and maybe the picture will give you a clue. Sometimes I just look at the title, but the picture takes you to a different time and place as well. The Book Without Words. Since we're looking at questioning in your class, could you just, with your friend, what questions come to mind when you hear the title and read the title, The Book Without Words? You got 1 minute to brainstorm questions. Go. The Book Without Words. What questions do you have?
Like when you look at it, you say, well, I want to open it and see if it has no words.
So your first thing is, this is a trick. Does this book have any words?
Does it just have pictures in it?
Is it only pictures? And I introduced 1 sentence at a time. The first paragraph of the book has 4 sentences. So in turn, I read 1 sentence aloud to the children, which I displayed on the chart, just to have them predict and have them raise questions. Here's the first sentence of The Book Without Words. It was in the year 1046, on a cold winter's night, when a fog thick as wool and dank as a dead man's hand crept up from the river Scrog into the ancient town of Fulworth.
It was almost as if I could picture the whole scene. I could picture an ancient town with no light. It was damp and dark, and the fog was rolling in, and it gave me
a creepy feeling that something mischievous was going to happen.
Okay. How did all that happen with the first sentence? Like, what specifically did that, do you think?
I don't know.
Was there a word or something in that?
It was the word ancient. It gave you a creepy feeling about the scenery and about the story.
And so they each wrote 3 questions on a file card. Interesting enough, they were color-coded. That allowed me to the kids to work in different group situations. I had them star one question that they felt was a beyond the lines question, since they worked with that model, one that they thought might promote a lot of thinking. They met with a partner who had a different color card and shared their questions and made predictions from the book. One of the invitations is working with the kids to introduce the literature circles. So I invited the children to choose novels. I had multiple copies of a range of novels. They got into their groups, and I wanted them to apply the information, apply the understanding, apply their questioning skills with what I had demonstrated. And the demonstration led to them asking questions about the novel that they were introduced to. One final activity is the teacher provided them with a framework of questions to guide their discussion. What did the title make you think about? What are you curious about? And that curiosity is what questioning inspires, because when we read or we see a movie or any kind of text, we raise questions in our head. In the classroom, we get to share these questions and work towards finding answers from each other. What I saw in this grade 5 classroom is the teacher taking them through different stages of questioning. And she was very deliberate in leading them from very simple questions and sort of literal questions and moving them to different stages of deeper thinking through the graphic organizer that she provided. And the branching question lets them look at alternatives and divergent thinking.
The first thing I did was I had them share with their elbow partner what they knew about fairy tales. And then I had them turn around and move into groups of 4 or 5 and share again. I asked them what they would like to know about fairy tales. Do you have any questions about fairy tales using these 5 W questions?
What is a fairy
Nicole.
tale?
What is a fairy tale? So when Nicole asks, what is a fairy tale, she would write that question on her graphic organizer in this spot here. And then I revisited going back to those 5 W questions: who, what, where, when, and why. You're going to use the 5 W questions and you're going to fill in all these spots on your graphic organizer, the handout that you already have. Once I think they had a better understanding of fairy tales, they were able to come up with deeper level thinking questions about fairy tales. And so what they did was they put the main topic or idea was fairy tales, and they put the questions in the circles leading from that idea. And then I asked them to think of questions that might come from those questions that they had originally asked. You're asking a question and, ooh, I have another question that relates to this.
Okay.
Right?
So we're not actually
And so you've come up with questions to put in these spots. I want you to right now share a couple of those questions. Carrie.
Why do people make fairy tales?
Why do people make fairy tales? Who told the first fairy tale? Oh, what question might come up that might be related to that question? Kristen?
Who did they tell the fairy tales to? The next person.
Okay. So who did they share their fairy tale with? From all these questions, I wanted them to take one question that they were excited about so that they could later do some research about that question and find out more. All right, let's see. Matthew, what question intrigues you the most?
Where do most fairy tales take place?
Okay, Matthew, I want you to think about that question, and why does that question interest you?
I wanted to know about it because most countries have fairy tales, and I wanted to know about different cultures and more about the culture of fairy tales in different countries.
Excellent. What I'm going to have you do now is I'm going to have you fill out and do a little self-assessment. I asked them to use this simple self-evaluation or self-assessment of their question, and it uses a simple level 1, 2, 3, or 4, and it asks several questions at the top based on the question that they chose. So for example, does your question help to focus your research? Are you excited about your question? Will your question help you learn more about fairy tales? Adora, now you've chosen the question that intrigues you the most, is most important to you, and you've now done your self-assessment on that question. What was your question?
My question was, what was the first fairy tale about?
Adora, why do you think that's a good question?
I think it was a good question because I think it would be cool to learn about how it changed over the years and about the history of the person that told it.
Another plus of this particular activity is that she let kids learn from each other, the elbow to elbow, the think, pair, share, and very simply she had the kids turn around and talk to each other, brainstorm together, and that led to more divergent thinking, more questioning, so the kids questioned each other's questions. And because she spent a lot of time at questions, I think her goal of getting the kids to move to further research, move to further inquiry, move to further wondering has been set as the kids begin this unit, develop the unit, and start gathering research that is going to help them answer some of these questions and of course lead to other questions, which is what our goal is.
We're really interested in looking at literacy across the curriculum and absolutely looking at the areas that we can explore in language, especially language talking. And the work we've done with questioning and oral communication in the classrooms is really exceptional. I think it allows the children to reflect on their own thinking, their own learning, and eventually, of course, we want it to transfer that responsibility of learning from the teacher to the student. We've done a lot of talking ourselves as a division, and we've looked at different ways to come at reading, to come at writing, and the children have had a lot of experience with oral language use in the classroom. I think the teachers have been very inventive in terms of their classroom strategies. They're using an awful lot of questioning in their classrooms across the curriculum, and they're also moving toward the whole idea of literature circles as well.
In this part of the webcast, we're going to focus on the literacy resources necessary for a strong junior program in reading and writing and talking. We know we need a variety of literacy events in the junior years. We need a lot of activities that cause kids to look carefully at text, to use print, to create, to compose, to write, to talk. We want these events to fill their lives. Resources include things like books, of course, and magazines, and computers and technology. And we mustn't forget the kids' own lives that they write about and talk about. These are the texts of their lives in the junior years. We want texts that are inclusive, that involve different genres and forms and formats. We want texts that allow for diversity and different perceptions, different viewpoints. We want texts that cause kids to read critically, to look creatively, to connect, to identify. We need a variety of formats of text for our kids. In this school, we're going to see teachers and children involved in a variety of activities using different kinds of resources, different kinds of formatting with the resources, and different types of responses and activities involving the resources.
At Queen Victoria School, what we tried to do was to encourage our children to have a place that they could come to just simply read. So we began an early bird reading club where we involved as many children from the junior division who wanted to participate, and also encouraged our staff to come and read alongside the children. It's every morning at 8:15, and to our great joy, we had over 200 children who chose to participate. It is a happening thing where we have not only collections of books that children are guaranteed to have in the library because they're ones that can't be borrowed, but there are also opportunities for them to have a wide array of graphic novels, a wide array of nonfiction, and as well as various genre, poetry, fiction, magazines. So it's always busy, it's always happy, and children read for a good 45 minutes before they start their day.
Our school values reading in all facets of the curriculum. What we do here is we try to make the books available to our students, but a crucial part of making education very important and a lifelong learning process is to make sure there are books that are available for everyone. That includes all the staff. Our school has spent a lot of time and money investing into developing a professional library for our teachers. As you can see, we have one section completely devoted to different strands. There are also books that we as teachers value in our personal reading. We have a section for that as well.
In my classroom, I use IT on a regular basis. I feel it's an integral part of my daily teaching practice. In the morning, the children come in. One of the first things they do in pairs is they go to one of our computer centers. We have 2 in my classroom. In one computer center, there are 2 Dell computers. They go onto those computers and they access our class online conference, which has been organized through the intranet that the TDSB has called TEL. I post weekly questions in there that they answer. They have email buddies that they're corresponding with back and forth at another school at Don Mills and Eglinton. And they also pose questions to each other on various topics.
I'm in the Queen Victoria TEL program, and we are trying to send emails to our partners from another school. And right now I am answering the questions from my classmates for this week.
In the other computer center we have, it's for more creative purposes, and we do a lot of multimedia work using an Apple eMac computer. On that computer, the students currently are working through a project where they're doing GarageBand, which is part of the iLife suite of programs that Apple has, and GarageBand allows students to easily create music, and they're going to be using this music in my future poetry unit, so their poetry will be based on the music that they've been creating. In our DEAR time, as we're an EYLP school, we have what's known as DEAR time, drop everything and read, and that's right at first period in the morning. And I typically use the Metro newspaper, which is a free publication one can obtain at subway stops in Toronto. I grab 20 on my way in, and I give them to the children because they're an excellent source of current information at an appropriate reading level for junior students.
In our computer lab, which we call the CAT Studio, the whole class comes to use the computer together, and I work with them to familiarize themselves with how to find information, produce information, and how to use the computer as a tool. Once the students are on the internet and wow, they discover there's 3 million different sites about racism, that's when the critical literacy comes in, and we ask them to start thinking about what exactly do you want to know? Is this a good site to give you the information you're looking for? And so it forces them to think about what they're looking for and how they organize their thinking. Sometimes in the computer lab we use partners, and what the partnering technique does is it allows the students to really articulate some of the discussion that we're trying to get and the thought processes that we're trying to get at. So the partners just gets the kids talking more and again adding meaning and explaining what they're thinking about the work that they're doing.
I find that my kids work well cooperatively, and I enjoy having them work cooperatively together. It also allows you to create a big work, which I think children really enjoy. So when I did the brochure, the children felt a lot of success with what they produced. And it also can make learning more fun.
This project was made by Room 401. We made it from Canada and all the provinces in Canada. This is Nova Scotia, and it was made by Eden, Tashi, and Sarah. They did 5 pieces of writing and 3 pictures.
Our teacher just gave us groups to do each province. The information, we just researched it on the computer. We looked at books from the library, and we read books from our teacher.
So when we were doing the brochure, they had to research, read, and then write about what they read to show understanding. And then the next step, which will be our third step, will be when they then perform and read what they have written for other classes, for each other, to show the learning from each group.
One by one, the elephants moved away, and we waded through the river. We climbed up the interlocking trails after them. Back came the old excitement we'd felt with Mum and Dad as we trod in trails worn out by generations and generations of elephants. I really enjoy the read aloud with my students because it gives me an opportunity every morning to welcome them to the classroom and to kind of just go over what was going on the night before in their lives before I even introduce the book or get started with the book. And it's a great way to just have that open communication with them, and the kids really like that. I choose books that I like, and I think books that the kids are going to like. If I'm going to be passionate about the book, and if I'm going to enjoy reading the book and, you know, put some character and some heart into the story, then it obviously has to be a book that I like and that I think the kids will like. A lot of times I choose books that are cross-curriculum. This year in grade 4 I'm doing habitats, so we're reading a book called The Elephant Child. And it kind of can tie in some ways into my units on habitats in Africa and the study of elephants and how other animals interact with elephants and the natural setting of Africa. With the beginning of Read Aloud, we usually do a bit of a summary of the story. We talk about what was read the day before. Okay, so in the last chapter of Elephant Child, the group were headed to the the Utensi Cloud Forest. And why are they headed to the Utensi Cloud Forest? Kevin?
To find the elephants.
To find the elephants. Now, who is headed that way? Who's going to the Utensi Cloud Forest? I feel that as a male teacher in elementary education, that it's just important for kids to see that you know, adult males like to read, and that we can add character and thought and love and heart to those stories, and then, you know, give it back to the kids.
Although we do have a resource program here at the school, we try to meet the needs of all of our students in the regular classroom, and this is usually done through guided reading. Now, guided reading is small group reading instruction. There are approximately 6 students in a group. The groups are determined on the basis of the students' needs at a particular point in time. The kids really enjoy small group instruction. They like the attention that they receive in a small group, and quite often they don't get that in the regular classroom with the great number of students that are in there. Today we're going to read a story, and it's called The Golden Scarab. And The Golden Scarab is a graphic novel. What is a graphic novel, Ashami?
A graphic novel is a novel that has pictures in it.
Very good. So graphics are pictures. What does a graphic novel remind you of, Suraj?
A comic book.
A comic book. In a moment I'm going to ask you to skim and scan the novel. Okay, and as you skim and scan, you're going to make a prediction about what you think the story is about. Okay, now what are you doing when you're making a prediction? What are you doing when you're making a prediction? Ashami?
It's like you're guessing.
Right, you're taking a very good guess about what you think the story is going to be about. Okay, so take a few moments now to skim and scan. As students are reading the text on their own during the guided reading lesson, I usually make notes. I assess their reading. I make notes on each student, what I see, what I observe. I also make notes as to where I need to go the next day. Appropriate text selection is crucial at the junior level, especially when you're working with struggling readers. The books need to be at the student's instructional reading level, which is just slightly beyond their level of independence. But there should be a few challenges in there for them as we are reading the story to see if you can find the answers.
Okay.
There's so many different connections that one can make between literacy and music, and I try to use as much music as possible in my class, mainly because I find that it's an effective tool to focus students' attention on a particular expectation. So for example, we can often take a piece of poetry and actually use that in a totally different context by adding melody, music, background, and they can create songs out of poems. They can write their own poems too, and then roll to a specific melody, and it helps them understand syllables, accents, and so on. In addition to that, it's also a great way for students to really try to understand things like metaphor, similes. There's just so much in there that students can use, and music, I think, is a great way to focus their attention.
I believe it's important that children find that there's a purpose for their reading and a purpose for their writing. So some of the things that we do is after we've done our research and our reading and our jot notes and our writing, I actually have them consider the audience that they're going to perform the piece to, or have a letter that they're going to write to someone, so that writing becomes alive. It's not just something that stays flat on a page.
This is our song on the research on Neptune. Neptune is the 8th planet from the sun. Its largest moon's a day.
One of the things that we did was I talked to the students about considering their audience. So what age level, what age group, keeping them interested. What is it that the audience would need to know? So they're not just writing for self anymore, but they're considering who it is that they're going to be presenting to. They're more interested in what they're doing. They find it more interesting to research it because they're aware that there's an end product, so it doesn't stay locked up in their folders or their books. And also the idea that they practice their presentation, they learn it all the more because they go over it and they read it again and again and again. And I also find, for instance, when we did the songs today, that I have other students who are able to sing back the words to the songs, which means that they're also learning the information, or they're also performing parts of the rap that they did today. And so that means that they've also taken in that information. So it works on both ends, that they learn as they're doing, but their audience learns from them as well.
Hi, my name is Tyvon.
And my name is Sangi.
This is for our solar system science project. Mercury is the closest planet to the sun. I'm going to tell you that in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Here's Saturn. It just took us fun. Maybe do it again because that was pretty fun.
No, maybe he's going to dance like Michael Jackson.
Ow! Palm dog. Jupiter. Mercury.
Mercury rotates slow. If you don't believe me, your answer is no.
It takes Mercury 88 days to orbit the sun at once. Jupiter is a hard word to pronounce. Jupiter. Mercury's so hot. So is Pluto. Not. What's Mercury plus Jupiter? I'll give you a clue. I bet you that's something that you never knew. This is our solar system crew. Bye-bye. This is from us to you.
The most significant publishing venture at this stage in our literacy world is the graphic novel. It's altered how we teach reading, how kids think about reading, and how boys especially come to reading. In this library we're in today, graphic novels play a great big part in the literacy world of children for both boys and girls. As I look at the graphic novels that are here, I see such a range of types of books, from funny through mystery, through realism, through fantasy, all kinds of stories waiting for kids to discover. In the group you're about to see, I'm going to work with 5 children who are fans of the graphic novel. Let's see what they have to say about them. Graphic novels are one of the most important books for kids. Every child seems to love graphic novels. I want you to tell me why you like graphic novels.
All of the other books I have at home, whenever I read them, I usually get bored fast. But when I read my graphic novels, I can read them over and over.
And what's your favorite graphic novel? Harriet?
Bone?
Have you read all of the Bone series?
No.
I've got 2 more here. Have you read these?
No.
You think you want to?
Yes.
Have you read them, Griffin?
Yeah, they're very funny.
Do you like them? Which is the better one?
I haven't read that one, but I've read the Greek Cow Races one.
Why are in graphic novels sometimes the pictures fill the whole page, and sometimes they just have 6 frames on a page? Why is that?
If it's like a small page, you don't get much of the excitement. If it's big, you get to see all the detail, and you get the big idea of what's happening.
Like in this one?
Yeah.
So what's happening in that one?
They are sneaking into the cow race.
A cow race?
Yep.
This is about a cow race?
Yeah.
I didn't know cows had races. And I want to know why so many adults think children shouldn't read graphic novels. What are they saying? What is going on? Yes,
I think
Daisy
they're
Ray.
saying like maybe it's violent because like maybe they haven't read the book and they're just judging it by the cover.
I think in the back of the days when our parents were small, they didn't have graphic novels and they mostly, the illustration, they write with pencil and they mostly had chapter books, but then since they got used to chapter books, they say to us read chapter books instead of graphic novels.
Parents, for children, if they see children reading graphic novels, they'll say, look at this book. There's only little words in this. Like babies read this.
Isn't that funny when you say that? Yeah. I want to know, if you were a teacher, would you allow graphic novels in your classroom as part of the reading program? Oh, the hands are all up. As part of the reading program. Would you, Gabriella?
Yes, absolutely.
I think if I'm a teacher, at first I'll let them read graphic novels, but then as the year go by, I'll increase the level and then at the end of the year I'll probably mostly give them chapter books.
Okay, well I want you to find one wild word in your book, like Shazam, and read it out loud to me. Find one of those big, wide words.
My big wild word is coochie.
Wow, say that louder.
Coochie.
Bank.
Zamo.
My word is crack boom. 2 words right together. Well, aren't you guys wonderful to come today and talk about graphic novels? I think I would have graphic novels in my classroom. I think I'm with you guys. And I think if we help kids read what they want to read, maybe they'll expand what they choose to read. Just like you told me when you were teachers. Thanks very much, everybody. The administration in the school, the principal and the 2 vice principals, are very aware of the importance of building resources for the junior years.
I think one of the most important things, Kent, is to as a new administrator, is to really get into the classrooms, visit classrooms, see what the classroom is made up of. Are there level text in the classroom? Are there gender-appropriate books for boys and for girls? Are there those graphic novels in there for those boys, which they really like? Are the kids reflected in the actual text? Are there books from different backgrounds where the kids actually see themselves in the text? I think that's really important. Kids need to be able to relate and see themselves in the text and in the resources that are in the classroom.
We have, at our school, we have a school improvement team, and on the school improvement team, we have representatives from the entire school. So in the junior school, we would have someone from grade 4, grade 5, grade 6, from special ed, and from ESL. We look at our data, we look at the areas that we need to improve, and from there we decide what resources we need in order to reach the goals that we set for ourselves for that year. If in your school you truly have a professional learning community, in that professional learning community you are studying. We have book clubs in which we study various experts, such as we looked at Debbie Miller. So she would become someone that would inform the kinds of books that we would order. Sharon Taberski has informed many of the practices that we have in our school. So if you have that kind of learning community and everybody gives input into it, you are only going to get the best resources out of that. But you have to establish that first. But I also think what's I think a very key piece is for the administrator is that they have to be part of all the PD and part of all the in-service. I don't know how many I go to, and the administration isn't there. So how are you ever going to, how can you have those expectations of your staff if you're not going to be there? So we're very much a part of any in-service that goes on, and we're not afraid to say, I don't know, and I'm learning along with you. I think that's the culture of the school. And I think what the key is that the teachers here are really committed to the children. They know that they may be the difference between a child being successful or not being successful. And so it's quite a responsibility they take on when they come here. And we even, when we're interviewing teachers, we ask them the questions. We ask them about literacy, what they know about literacy. We ask them what their values and their beliefs are. And we expect excellent teaching.
From my experiences being here at Queen Vic, I must say that going to those PD sessions has informed me a lot about understanding not just the primary level but the junior level, and that transition from primary to junior and how it's extended through the programs that we offer here in literacy. And I think it's a valuable tool for any administrator because it also means that you actually get involved with the teachers, and I'm really happy to say that now the teachers will feel comfortable to collaborate with me about, and I can understand some of the issues that they have and concerns with.
Because you were part
of the group.
Because you were part of the group. You were all learning together.
Junior learners have a strong sense of social justice. Being critically literate is an essential and necessary skill in today's world. By providing opportunities for students to engage with topics that are relevant and of interest, the teacher is helping students to develop as independent critical thinkers. Students need to know what an author's viewpoint is and be able to recognize biases and know whose point of view is missing in order to make meaning in a broader schema. Encouraging students to take social action about issues that they feel strongly about prepares them to be active citizens in a global world. By doing so, we are supporting students not only in their development in literacy, but in their development as responsible human beings.
I'm the principal of Hawthorne Public School in Ottawa, Ontario, and what I'd like to say about my school is that it is a fabulously dynamic learning environment. I have an outstanding staff that work hard every day to bring the curriculum to life for the 450 students that we have. These students come to us from 40 different countries of the world. They speak many languages, and they have cultural backgrounds that are very different from our Canadian society. Our challenge is to give them the skills they need to be competent readers and writers so that they can go on and lead successful lives. That's not an easy task because many of the families in which they're coming from also do not speak English. That means that our outreach is not only to the students but also to their families. Our staff has decided to focus on the multilingual part of learning as a basis for building English language skills. And this is an important component of how they organize their curriculum planning. And in keeping with that, we know also that team planning, when we do something like this, is really vital, because without that, we don't get that cross-curricular grouping and we don't get that team sharing of research and ideas that makes this creative process in the school so dynamic. To do that, we looked at regrouping and reorganizing our timetables in both primary, junior, and the intermediate divisions. We're still working on various aspects of those schedules, but for the most part, because we have evolved into a pretty tight professional learning community, we're using the data and the learning and interests of the students to drive our curriculum expectations.
The Hawthorne Herald is a school newspaper for Hawthorne Public School, and it's been in circulation for about 3 years now. It circulates to about 450 different households from students and the local community, and the students absolutely enjoy it, and it inspires students within the school to read. As our logo goes, don't just write, get read. And the Journalism Club started last year, where young students could get the chance to write. Each week we meet and have editorial meetings to discuss stories, concepts, and ideas, and then the students go out and do their own writing. It's a wonderful opportunity for them to learn about deadlines and about what it's like to work in the real world.
Some of the things you're going to see today will focus on, for example, a school-wide project, Hawthorne Writes, in which we published a book that went home to all the families and students.
We need reading materials that reflect the diversity that we have at Hawthorne. So one of the projects that we've done is Hawthorne Writes, where we try to create realistic, authentic materials that are relevant to our students, that just reflect the people that we have in our classrooms. So it was a huge school-wide equity-focused literacy project. All the students in the schools wrote a personal memoir, all the staff wrote a personal memoir. So working with our families, our community members, the international languages programs, we translate our stories into our first languages. And then all of our stories, all of our dual-track stories, we've published as a book simultaneously in print as a hardcover book and online so that our family members around the world can share in the resource. Where we're using the stories now is with independent reading or with shared readings or modeled readings. The students are able to see themselves reflected in the curriculum. They can see themselves or see situations like what they've been through, and it's authentic, and they can make personal connections to the reading material.
You'll see day-to-day lessons focusing on visualization, on connecting text to self.
I'm going to share a part of the text. And while I'm reading, I would like you to close your eyes and
As part of our balanced literacy program, we create an environment where students learn specific reading comprehension strategies, such as visualization, to better understand what they have read. We demonstrate visualization by modeling and thinking aloud how expert readers visualize the text. Students are given independent practice to show how they understand and comprehend visualization in the text.
And bringing curriculum to life through drama and music.
And we came up with the idea, since we're approaching a topic on habitat of boa constrictors, so we're also connecting the arts.
very much.
One of the issues that we have with our students here at Hawthorne Public Schools, many times they have trouble with the vocabulary, not just in language arts, but in all other subject areas. Lots of times the students come up and say, oh, it's such a hard class, and it has nothing to do with the content, it has to do with just learning new words for the first time. So for example, with scientific method, we looked at the different words, the vocabulary, and we added some kinesthetic reinforcement through choral reading, through dancing, and added physical things to the words to help the students remember what they were.
Hey, what? Shake it out, we're done, it's a conclusion.
As principal of Charles H. Hulse Public School, part of what we're all about is structuring our learning environment related to so many different aspects of global and character education. Everything we do daily in our classrooms reflects a link to global awareness, understanding, and appreciation.
The role of the multicultural liaison officers in our school is to facilitate the settlement and integration of immigrant families in our schools, as well as to help our school staff to learn how to accommodate immigrant families and their children.
I'm very proud of the school and the initiatives we've had. An example of this is our global response team. They do everything from increasing awareness amongst our students at the elementary level on a particular issue, to fundraising as an action-oriented response to a global event.
We raised money for Hurricane Katrina, and we did a bunch of fundraising stuff.
We did Ryan's Well, where we raised money for a well in Africa.
We learned that helping the environment and helping other countries or other people is good.
We raised money to draw for Somalia through doing a car wash, a bake sale, and a basketball shootout.
With some people that are unfortunate, we can give some of the stuff that we have to people that don't have it.
So many members of the community, from our school council to our staff, are actively involved in creating an authentic, meaningful learning environment for our students. One of the elements of this, through one of our grade 6 teachers, Patrick Masco, has been a cultural understanding program between our predominantly Muslim school and a Jewish private school, Hillel Academy. We've been so fortunate to have Mr. David Shento, a Holocaust survivor, here at our school to speak to our students firsthand about his experiences in a concentration camp.
When I came here the first time, after I finished my talk, a student comes up to me and we talked for a second, and the student says to me, "I hate the Jews." I said, "Why?" He said, "Because my parents hate them." I said, "Well, I'm a Jew." He says, "Yes, you're different." And from that day on, I made up my mind, more than ever, that hate, if it's possible to eradicate hate, I'll never stop to talk about it. And for Patrick Masco still to keep working on this issue, he's a miracle man, because he feels that if he's not going to get to the core of it, who will? And that's why I feel that the school, this school, and Hillel in Ottawa, for them to get together and discuss the issues, this is the beginning for peace on earth.
When I think across all of the subjects and the cross-curricular links and the way that we are able to build global initiatives within those structures, I'm encouraged and inspired. We talk a lot in the school about environmental initiatives, and there are so many connections to the curriculum, graphing, fractions, ratios, percentiles, to look at the impact we are having as humans on our environment. And so we make meaningful connections between the curriculum expectations and what is going on and what our students see in our environment. And it's a very positive experience. It's hands-on, it's meaningful, and very engaging for our students. I can't think of an initiative across the globe that doesn't hit home with any population or a population within our schools. So any event where we can build those bridges between academics in the classroom and the environment around us is a positive learning experience for all of us. We were able to raise funds for Ryan's Well Foundation, and he was so kind to come and visit us to talk with our students, to work on literacy-related activities, including a personalized letter which described how he used the fundraising that we had generated for the development of a well in Tanzania. And so these types of authentic, meaningful learning experiences, all about reading, writing, and oral communication and media literacy, were instrumental in the development of our students academically, socially, ultimately to be responsible global citizens.
The students, teachers, and administrators in this webcast have shared their reading lives with us, and now we need to reflect on our own schools, our own classrooms, so that we can continue to create opportunities for authentic reading events that really matter to the children we teach in the junior years.
Thank you for joining us for this month's webcast, Making Sense of Reading Instruction, Grades 4 to 6. As you reflect on what you've seen and heard, we encourage you to consider your data and select an idea presented in this webcast to try. Find a colleague with whom to continue the dialogue. We applaud your professionalism and desire to continue learning. During February, David Booth, Kathy Gould-Lundy, Larry Schwartz, and Bev Strachan will each offer a web conference during which participants can continue their learning by interacting, asking questions, and sharing ideas with the presenter and educators from across the province. Remember to visit www.curriculum.org for a complete listing of archived and upcoming webcasts, as well as upcoming web conferences. The Literacy and Numeracy Secretariat welcomes your feedback as we continue to support professional learning and improve student achievement in Ontario.